The Scottish Rite degrees of the Lodge of Perfection span the 4th to 14th degrees. If we boil these degrees down, they are the continuation and completion of the Scottish Rite craft ritual and the discovery of the lost word. The degrees take us through a moral pathway of lessons where we are taught that we are ultimately responsible for ourselves and our own actions. We learn that we must act in a certain way if we are to expect positive results. This paper is not, however, intended to focus on the actual degrees of the Lodge of Perfection or a commentary on its philosophy, which can be read in many of the books on this subject. I wanted to take a little bit of a different direction with this paper and focus on an aspect that is often ignored but is an integral part of the philosophy: the consequences of the quest for perfection. We are taught that Freemasonry is a moral organization that takes good men and makes them better. We must choose to join and then advance by degrees. The suggestion here is that step by step we grow and become better, however that is defined. This is an essential aspect of all moral philosophies because while change is inevitable, positive change or growth is our choice. We don't have to do anything that we choose not to do. If desired, we must choose to walk the Masonic path. Scottish Rite Masons are given the proper tools. They can use them to make the conscious decision to improve themselves when they do change. In this case, we must remember that we are using the specific word perfection. What do we mean by that word? Very few humans will claim to be perfect. If they do, they are usually discounted as delusional. The quest for perfection can sometimes be misunderstood. If we think that we are striving for a final goal of perfection, then we can expect to live a very frustrating life. We will never reach such a goal. No human can expect to make perfection out of his life. The most that we can hope for is to make positive changes until our last day on earth. Throughout history, many societies have pondered the idea of the quest for perfection. There's an old symbolic legend from the Orient which might be considered. The story is that of a Buddhist monk by the name of Kobo Daishi. We learn that Kobo was an artist of great renown. His talent and the beauty of his work were known throughout the land. One day, village leaders asked Kobo to create a dragon to be placed on the arch of a newly built temple. Kobo accepted the task. As the dragon was being carved, villagers would come to watch the master at work, marveling at the beauty of the large piece of stone. As the work progressed, crowds began to gather to witness the transformation of the raw stone at the hands of Kobo. As the dragon was near completion, the whole village was there, watching the incredible work being done. The dragon was magnificent. No one had ever seen a more beautiful or lifelike statue. When Kobo hit the very last strike on the statue, everyone knew that they were looking at perfection. It was then that something completely unexpected and terrifying happened. The dragon began to move. It was coming to life. The expressions of delight on the faces of the crowd were replaced by shock and fear. As the dragon began to move its head and wings, the villagers began to run in terror. The story tells us that when the heavens saw the dragon and realized it was perfect, the dragon was given life. Kobo, realizing what was happening, rushed down to the base of the statue where a bucket of paint had been placed and flung it up on the dragon. As soon as the paint hit the dragon, it froze and returned to stone. It was no longer perfect. And there, the dragon remained as a stone statue on the temple's arch for some 500 years. Inside this story, there is a lesson offered to us. We are taught that there are consequences for perfection, or at least the quest for perfection, and consequences are not always what we expect. In another story, we are told of a group of artists and musicians who call themselves the Cult of Imperfection. This group called themselves this odd name because in every piece of art or music created by the members of this group, some flaw or imperfection was deliberately incorporated. The flaws were placed in the work because they felt it was a display of audacity for anyone to try and create something perfect. They knew it could not be done, but to even try was an unthinkable act of ego. How dare anyone seek perfection? They knew that any such attempt could result in consequences that might be very unpleasant. So, their answer to the problem, and a show of humility, was to create work with design flaws. Now if we look at Freemasonry, we learn in the craft degrees of the importance of improving yourself. The first collection of degrees in the Scottish Rite beyond the craft lodge is known as the Lodge of Perfection. But is the suggestion that we are really seeking perfection? One thing we must learn about all of Masonry is that what we teach is with symbolism. We often find that our symbolic manner of instruction presents lessons on top of lessons. We can, of course, seek only the outer levels, and that's all we'll find. But by digging deeper into the lessons, we can find so very much more. The Scottish Rite presents us with a good example of the duality of Freemasonry. One suggestion is that this concept is outwardly represented by the double-headed eagle, or as I believe it may have originally been, the double-headed phoenix. The thought is that the double-headed eagle, or phoenix, represents the two parts of the Scottish Rite, the organization and the philosophy. The two parts operate independently, but are tied together by their roles. The philosophy remains constant and unchanged. It is the actual nature of the Scottish Rite. The organization is a human participation in and application of the philosophy. The problems begin when the two heads are out of sync. If there is a change or a movement in the organization away from the philosophy, then things begin to deteriorate. But is a move away from the philosophy unnatural or a pre-planned and natural part of nature's cycle? In nature, we have 4 seasons. Some view these seasons as aspects of human life. Spring represents birth. Summer represents learning or growing. Fall represents passing on what we have learned to others. And winter represents death. But then the cycle in nature begins again with another spring. In nature, this calls for the rebirth of trees, flowers, and the beauty of the earth. Some view this as a representation of the birth of the human spirit following physical death. The Rosicrucians have an old thought that anything considered of value must face the test of death. The idea is that everything positive and good must reach a point where it ceases to be as it once was and begins to fail. It begins to die. But once dead, if it is of any value to humanity, it will find a way to come back, just like the phoenix or the spring. If it is of no value, then it will fade away and be forgotten. We can look at aspects of this thought from the Lodge of Perfection. If we look at this body as the Lodge of Growth, we must recognize that there is only so much growth that can take place. Where do you go if you are involved in the Scottish Rite's leadership and obtain every office and degree you desire? If change is unavoidable, and if our steady growth has a ceiling, what does this mean? If our upward growth can go no further and change is still going to take place, then the only option for us is to come back down. Is this the death of our growth? Death in the scenario of winter and the Rosicrucian idea of a particular test of death does not necessarily mean the end of something, and it does not always mean that it will happen in the blink of an eye. Death can be long and drawn out. Many hold that death begins at the moment of birth. Death can also mean just another form of change. Individuals can belong to an organization, and if their only goal is rank, power, and authority, then there will come a time when this is no longer available. They will fall and die as a force in the organization. Unfortunately, if there are more than a few with this same attitude, then this can result in the whole organization meeting the same fate. It is one of the reasons why an organization can pull away from the philosophy. If we look at every Masonic body, Scottish Rite, York Rite, all rites, they belong to their philosophy. The body is either in line with the philosophy, which does not change, or it is not in line. If it does not align with the basic philosophy, it begins going down. There is a thought that this going down is part of the growth cycle and it is natural. If this is the case, then it could mean that the Lodge of Perfection is designed for us to realize that we are growing to a point where we must start over again and relearn or rediscover all that we have experienced. So the concept of going down may not be as devastating as we might imagine. Since the 1970s, we have heard countless reports that Masonry as a whole is declining. Yes, the Scottish Rite is also declining in some areas, and many are not attending meetings. Yet in other areas, it is growing. I firmly believe that the Scottish Rite is going through a period of realignment in its natural cycle. I am seeing more and more young Masons joining the Scottish Rite who are not interested in the gold and silver prizes or awards that may be won. They are looking for the real gold, the teachings. And this all seems to be part of a cycle. If this is the case, then the Lodge of Perfection can hold a special place as a fundamental aspect of a continuous, never-ending cycle of esoteric education, teaching designed to reveal lessons with each revisiting. The change that the Scottish Rite, and really all of Masonry, is going through now has no guarantee that it will be painless for everyone. There may be some who find this change wholly unacceptable. And what of our organizations? What if we are only doing things in our various bodies that is meaningful only to the ones who confer the degrees or run the meetings and not the general membership? Then a disconnect occurs. We must be of value to more than a few. The Scottish Rite is a venue for personal growth of all, not a place where only some can enjoy personal satisfaction through caps, titles, and offices. A meeting of the Lodge of Perfection is an opportunity to teach and learn the philosophy and nature of the Scottish Rite. Those who do not or cannot understand that philosophy must begin their own cycle to learn or relearn what they have forgotten or never learned. It's all part of the natural cycle of change. What is known as the Lodge of Perfection might be better understood as the Lodge of Perfecting. Perfecting is the steady growth of the individual. It is building on what is already known to fine-tune oneself without the unrealistic goal of actually achieving perfection. While we may obtain the highest offices and degrees, it can mean nothing as far as our personal growth. The two are not tied together. We must always continue to personally grow and desire to grow. We must objectively recognize when we are growing and when we have ceased to grow. When we realize that we have stopped growing, we must look to the teachings of the Scottish Rite to begin our own cycle of relearning. We must do this without being hampered by ego or false pride. We must recognize that we are part of the whole and begin on the natural cycle with the eagerness of what we first saw in the Scottish Rite degrees. It's like reading a very good book. When you are finished, sometimes you want to start all over and read it again. Like many aspects of Masonry, the Lodge of Perfection has layers of moral philosophy built into it. We are either part of the problem or part of the solution. In this case, no one rides the fence. It is one of the consequences of the quest for perfection or improvement. So next time you are at a Lodge of Perfection meeting, take a little time to close your eyes and just feel all around you. Allow yourself to be open to the deeper teachings of the ritual and the philosophy. Explore them. If you genuinely feel nothing, then try to have the strength and courage to start over. There is no shame. It's part of what growing means. Don't limit yourself to only what you must do. Take the extra step. Reach out and up. It's part of what it means to be a Scottish Rite Mason. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy the videos, please hit the like button and subscribe to us. Please pay a visit to the Cornerstone Book Publishers website at cornerstonepublishers.com for outstanding Masonic education. See you next time.